Okay. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make a fire blueprint that fakes a 3D fire using a sprite sheet, and you can see it casts some light on the character, and it also flickers, and it has some sound. It's a little bit hard to notice at this point, but the further you get away, the quieter that fire is. So that's pretty cool. Alright, I'm going to hit the escape key to get out of that. You'll notice first thing, this is in the wrong spot. It's in audio. It's supposed to be in the materials, your textures folder. So that's wrong. But I'm going to use these. There are two different things I have here, and I'll have this in the link. There is a fire sprite and there is a gradient. This is based off of another person's tutorial. I'm just trying to make this easier for you guys, since I felt that guy went a little bit fast, and he kind of moved around in some spots that I kind of wanted to clean up for you guys. So I have these things right here, and you'll notice I do have a fire BP and a fire mat. The very first thing that we're going to do is make a material. So to do that, I'm going to right click and go and make a material. So I'm going to do that correctly this time. I'm going to go inside of my geometry and under my meshes, and I'll put that inside of here. However, you can have that inside of a material folder underneath your meshes, however you're working right there. I'm going to make material, and we'll call this flame, and then we'll do like an underscore MAT, and I'm going to open this thing up. So you'll notice right away it is a material. It doesn't have a lot going on in it. The first thing we need to do is add the gradient and the fire sprite that we are importing from our game. So if I were to just minimize this, or just kind of make it a little bit smaller here, I'm going to bring those in. So let me just go under content and audio, and it was these two. So I'm just going to drag those into here, and you'll see I have these two pieces already ready to go. The first thing we need to do is to right click, and we're going to type in flipbook. So I'm going to add a flipbook. This is what we use to actually animate 2D into Unreal. So now that I have that, I'm going to connect the UVs of the flipbook out to the input of the sprites. So the UVs of my, let's see here. Oops. The UVs of my flipbook out. So I have the out UVs. I need to connect that to the input of the sprites. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just by clicking and dragging into here. Okay, and I do apologize, it's gonna sound like I'm reading things because I have this written down. I don't usually have to do that, but this is kind of complicated, and I want to make sure you guys are able to do this. You'll notice right away that my texture sample now is going to be displaying these 4 images here. That's fine. What we're going to do here is also go in, and we are going to connect the RGB out of the sprites to the material's base color. So the RGB out of these sprites right here need to go into the base color. So we should see something change. You see animation going on. That's actually a really good sign. From here, what we're going to do is right click and create a time node. And we are going to go and create a scalar parameter. We're going to be making a lot of these for this. And we're also going to right click and make a multiply node. Okay, so these are what we need. We're going to rename the time node to time multiply. So I got this, and I'm just going to, let's see here, go in and let's just change this name. Oops. And it's actually not the time node, it is this one. We're going to need to rename this one as a time multi. And from here, we're going to set our default value as a 0.5. So let's get that going. So 0.5. And we're going to plug the time node and the time multiply parameter out to the multiply. So we're going to grab this thing and this thing. There we go. We're going to drag these into the multiply. Okay. So from here, we need to create a constant. So we're going to right click and just add constant. And this constant has to have a input of a value. So what this is going to do is define how many rows and columns that are playing. So I'm going to change this so we can look at it as a plane here. Right now you see it's displaying kind of weird. It's playing 4 images at the same time. So we're going to change that. I have this constant right here, and I copied and pasted it, so I had another one. I need to be able to figure out how many images I have that define my columns and how many images define my rows. For me, that's 4, so I'm going to change my value for this constant to be 4, and this one I also need to be 4 for this one. We're going to plug that in to rows and columns. So now we're just seeing one fire. So that's a little bit easier to see this. From here, we are now going to add gradient and color to our material. So to do that, we're going to add another multiply node. And so we're going to right click and we're going to type in multiply. And we're going to right click and type in scalar parameter. So there's that one as well. This parameter needs to be changed to emissive multiply. So we're going to just type this as emissive multi. And we want to change our default value to something like 10. And I'm going to connect the gradient image and the emissive to the multiply node. So I have my emissive multiplier and I have my gradient image. I'm going to connect this to my multiply. So I'm going to grab the RGB into the A and my emissive multiply into the B, and that is the beginning of how we're going to add our color. Now what we're going to do is create a desaturation and a multiply node. So I'm going to right click and type in desaturation, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to type again multiply, and from here you're going to connect the gradient RGB to the desaturation. So we're going to grab this and connect this directly to desaturation, and you're going to connect this to the new multiply node. Okay, so I just took this desaturation, connected it to my multiply node. From there, we're going to create another multiply and another scalar parameter. So let's type in again multiply and another scalar parameter. Okay, so we have all of this right here. This new scalar parameter, we're going to call this thing flame opacity, and we're going to change the default value of this to 1. And from there, I'm going to move this down here. I'm going to move this down to here. I want my connections to look a little bit something like this. My RGB out for my texture sample, I want that to plug into my multiply for this one. That's going and connecting to the desaturation. And I also want my multiply that is coming out, that's from my texture sample and my emissive, it's going over to here. I want that to plug into my emissive color. And I also want to plug in my flame opacity to this multiply. And I also want to take this multiply that's connected to my texture sample and the desaturation, plug that to right here. And what I'm going to do is take this and then finally take that and add that to my opacity. So you'll notice it's grayed out right now. If I drag that in here, it'll still work. And we have something like this. Now, this may not look so great right now, and that's because in our material options, we'll notice that over here, you'll notice the blend mode right now is set as opaque. We take this and drop this down to translucent. Watch what happens to the animation on here. Now we have a flame, and if we were to kind of spin around this, you'll notice it's flat. So that's something that we're going to have to fix. So we're getting there. We have an animation, but we still need to have this thing work in the world, because right now this is just a material, so it's not really doing anything for us. It's not an object, it doesn't have a blueprint on it or anything like that. So we're going to save this, and I'm going to we'll just wait for this to finish saving here. Okay, I'm going to close that, and I'm going to make a new blueprint here. So I'm going to go from my content that the way it should be here. I've got my flame material. I'm going to make a flame blueprint. So I'm going to right click and make a class. This is going to be an actor. And I'm going to call this flame underscore BP, meaning that is my flame blueprint. What this means is when you use this thing, this is the thing we're going to drag out to create this actual flame object. We're not going to drag this material, we're going to drag this thing out. So I'm going to double click this thing to open the blueprint, and you'll notice there's not much going on here. We need to go ahead and go into our component, and we're going to create a static mesh. And over here, what we want the static mesh to be, this could just be a plane. That's fine. And I'm going to move this thing up a little bit so it's above the base of that actor here. If you need it to be a little bit more fine, we can change this to snapping for 1 just to get that a little bit up higher. Okay, so we have this thing right here, and this is the beginnings of this blueprint with the static mesh. The next step is we need to add the material, fire material, to this as well. So we're going to add component, and I'm going to call this actually flame. If we can't find it, actually, sorry, not in here. We'll have it on our static mesh. We'll add the material right here. So if we were to go into here, and we should be able to find it right there. There's flame material. So you have your plane, you created that. So you made a static mesh. You went over here to static mesh, change that to plane, and we're going to change this to flame material. And there it is. So we're going to make an adjustment to this now that we see where that is. Maybe you want it at the base where that flame is. There we go. That's looking nice. Okay. So now that we have something like this, we're able to see a plane in the real world, and that's going to be a nice thing to do. But let's actually make this thing light up. So what I'm going to do is go into my add component, and I need to type in something like point light. So I'm going to add point light, and from here my color for my point light is white. I'm going to make that more of like an orangey hue. Hit OK. And underneath the settings for this, we need to change the intensity units to lumens. And so that is actually kind of buried in here, right to unitless. Let's change that to lumens. And I'm gonna say, let's for now just put like 200. Hit enter. I'm gonna save this, compile it, save, close this thing, and let's test this thing out. I'm gonna drag this thing out into my scene, and I'm gonna hit play. So now it's lighting up, and I can't see it from certain angles. So that's a bummer. How do I fix that? Let's hit escape. We need to make the fireplace or face the player. So what we need to do next is we need to click on our flame BP, and I'm going to just delete out this stuff. You don't need it, so left click, drag, and delete. I'm going to go ahead and create a new function in here. So we're going to right click and just type in function. Actually, no, hold on. Okay, so to create a new function, it's over here under our functions. We'll just hit the plus key, and we're going to name this thing get angle. So that's the name of our function. So we're going to hit enter, and now that we have this, I'm going to right click and type in set actor rotation. So we need this, and we need to connect this to set actor location. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to click on get angle and drag that into set actor rotation. Now that I have that set, I need to create a get player camera manager. So I'm going to right click and type in get player camera manager. And now that I have get player camera manager, I need to drag this out to get camera location. So there's that. So we have the set actor rotation, the get angle, and the get player camera manager and get camera location. From here, we need to drag out and create a vector minus vector, which I know you guys are like, what is this? Don't worry. Vector, I'm just going to push the key of the minus key, and you'll see vector minus vector comes up here. And then let's see, what's our next step here? Okay, we're just going to back up here. I'm going to hold on the Alt key and click on this. It's going to break that connection, which is good. And I'm actually just going to delete this thing. I'm going to add here a get actor location. So I'm going to right click, get actor location. So I have this here, and I need to now add okay, so we're going to type in a vector minus vector, add that, and let's see. Bear with me for a second here. Okay, so we're going to take this thing, we're going to connect the get camera location to the top vector minus vector and this one to the bottom. And so we're gonna get something that looks like this. My sheet had it like this, not like how it looked earlier, so it just looked a little bit confusing. We're gonna now drag out from this side over to here to vector multiply. So let's type in vector and then do the little star. And so vector multiply vector, you got something like this. And we're going to add 1 for X and Y. So we have these two values. We just need to enter this. I know at this point you're taking a corkscrew to the base of your temple. This is not art. This is coding. This is what game design people would be doing. Not even game design. This would be computer science people mainly. But it's great to have a little bit of a handle of this. And again, I'm copying what other people do. You should never think that as an artist, this is what you're going to be hired to be doing. If that's what you're doing, you wasted a lot of time learning how to be an artist. This is more of the technical stuff. But again, having a grasp of this will definitely give you a leg up on the competition. That is for sure. All right, so I have all this set up. I'm going to drag out from here and add a normalize. Okay. What does that do? I have no idea. And then we're going to drag out from normalize to make a rotation from vector. So rotation from X vector. And we're going to connect this to the rotation input of the set actor rotation, which is all the way up here. So we're going to go whoop, and literally whoop, try to connect that and make that sound and watch as it doesn't work. And that would be because it has to be connected to this piece. So it's the new rotation on the set actor rotation. Drag that to the rotation from X vector, and now those are all connected. So what this nerdy thing did for us is it made it so our character, it's going to set that rotation based on our character's location and rotate it so it's always facing us. So we're going to save this and compile it. And let's close this thing out. Let's hit play and see what happens. So I'm over here and it doesn't want to work. So let's see why this guy doesn't want to behave. Okay, so we're almost there. We just had to do a couple other things. We're gonna go to our event graph. We have to add one more nerdy thing. From here, we're gonna create an event begin play. So there's an event begin play. And now we're going to drag out a set timer by function name. So drag out from here and set timer by function name. Cool. And we're going to change that function name to get angle. So this is going to, be looking for this function that we made. So this has a space in it, and we'll have to make sure that that has that. So what we'll do is, there we go, change this function name to get space angle, hit enter, and let's set the time to something like 0.1 to enable looping, and we're going to save, compile, let's hit play. Oh, I can't see it. Okay, so it moved, it rotated, but it's also still got some issues. So let's see what else we got to do here. Okay, so I need to make sure time was set, looping is on, and now I'm also going to go into my viewport and I'm going to rotate this thing about 90 degrees. So I just went into here, I'm going to save this, compile it again, get the heck out of there, hit play again, and now no matter where I go, this fire is following me. So I needed to make sure looping was on, and I needed to change that to 90 degrees. You very much will have probably the same exact issue with that, where you'll have to just change that. Inside of here, everything was okay. In this, And in this, I just had to turn this part on. And then in my viewport, so it's right here, just grabbing that and rotating it. And that's all that needed to be done to fix this. Okay, how do we make this thing flicker? We're gonna need to make a timeline and call it flicker. So that's gonna be the next step that we do. Okay, so we have our flame BP. We're gonna add that flicker. We're gonna double click, and we are in the event graph. So that's where we need to be. I need to drag out from here and then create a timeline. So I'm gonna add that. And from here, this is how we're actually going to animate this is how we did this with the door where it opens and closes. This is how we're going to control the light turning up and down. So, excuse me. This thing, we're going to name that. So I'm just going to call this light. Light flicker. And with light flicker, I'm going to double click on this timeline. We're going to add a track. So let's add a float track. And what we're going to call this float track is going to be called flicker. And we're going to set the length of this animation to something like 1. Now that we have this, we need to turn on our autoplay and our loop. So both of those are on, and we're going to save that. And let's we're going to animate this. So let's say that we have maybe a value of 2. So we'll set a keyframe here, and then maybe I'll go down and then down here, here, here. And the randomness of this is kind of what defines our flicker. So like flame shouldn't be super similar every time. It should be up and down at sporadic moments. So we'll mess around with something like that. So now that I have something like this, what we are going to do is save this, compile it, and we are going to go over to the event graph, and we need to bring in our point light. So I'm going to bring in the point light. So now that the point light is in here, we need to add a variable. So we're going to go over to here and then click variable, and this new variable needs to be something like light intensity. And so with this, we're going to compile that so we have this ready to go. And we're going to make it a variable type right here, float. So now that we have float, let's compile again. We'll save this. We're going to set the light intensity value. Whoops. Where is that value? Right here. So now that we have the light intensity and we compiled, you'll notice this value pops up over here. I'm going to save that 200. And let's drag this in and set it as get. And we're going to drag out from here as float multiply, float multiply float. And we're going to connect the animation of the flicker out to the other input of the float multiply float. So here we go with the flicker animation, and we're going to set that as the other connector. So we need to grab, where is that? So we have light intensity and this. We have flicker right in here that we created that animation. We're going to set that into here. So we have that ready to, whoop, it didn't connect, so I gotta make sure we just have it on there with a check mark. Okay. From here, let's right click and then add a set intensity. And we'll add this. Whoops. All right, that's fine. We'll keep that. So I have this set intensity, and it actually linked it to my point light, which is great. And from here, I notice it's actually a different point light. I'm going to delete that and drag that one in and drag that to my target. Okay, so that's ready to go. The reason why I did that is because I have other point lights in there. They're not named anything differently, but I noticed that there was a space between this point light and the other one might not have had that. So I don't want to be trying to get something to work that doesn't have any connections to it. I need to take my out of this multiply and bring it into the new intensity, and I should be ready to go. I'm going to compile and I'm going to hit save. Close this thing. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to turn over here and get close, and it's doing nothing. Let's see what we got to do. Okay, so I am back inside my event graph of the blueprint, and I just noticed I didn't connect this part right here. I need to make sure that my timeline for my light flicker has update connected to my set intensity. So we're going to do that. Now let's save, compile, close that thing, and then hit play and cross our fingers and our toes. And now we have this thing flickering away, and no matter where we go, except for looking straight top down, because it is just a little plane, it is moving around. Okay, as you can tell, I don't usually work with blueprints. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible to digest, but again, this isn't really my forte. I wanted to make it easier for you guys to understand, so in case if you wanted to do animated lights, this is something that you could do. How do you add the sound as the last thing? Let's see. Okay, so I'm back inside the blueprint here. I need to be able to add sound as a component to this. So think about your blueprint as a thing that encapsulates a bunch of different things you could do. So what I'm going to do is go in and add a component, and I can try to find it by digging through, or I can also go into my content, audio, and it's campfire. So I'm going to just put that into here. So now that's in here, and campfire is going to play. I need to make sure that my campfire has a couple things going on. Let me just go through these little checklists for you. Okay, so if we look at the campfire here, you're going to see that there is override attenuation. We want that checked on because when we have that on, if we were to look at the attenuation distance, we can modify that. And so if we look at the viewport here, this will turn this thing on. So, not the viewport, yeah, the viewport right here. So what this is saying is that the attenuation shape is a sphere, and the inner radius, so the loudest that you are when you're near that, is that big. So if I make that smaller, and then the audio that you'll hear, you'll start hearing it when you get inside of that little bubble there. So what I'm going to do here is save this and compile it and then close this. And now if I hit play, it's kind of hard to tell because I have a ton of these, but this should be louder as I'm closer to this. And then as I get further away, quieter, and get more loud right there. So that's basically it for this tutorial. I know it was probably my least interesting tutorial and it went all over the place. But hopefully this is helpful for those of you who want to add fire and how to make this into an interesting piece that will be helping you out here. So I just noticed that my fire looks like it's, yeah, that's why. The fire doesn't look like it's there because it was in the floor. So make sure you pull that thing up and now you should see this thing doing what it's supposed to do. So magic. Alright, thanks for putting up with this. Later.